Well, hey there and happy Tuesday. Welcome to episode 35 of She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts, and I am so thankful that you're here today. Thanks so much for tuning in. It is truly an honor today for me to welcome Jenna Kutcher to the podcast, and I'm sure Jenna needs no introduction to this creative community, but I will introduce her in just a second. I do want to thank today's sponsor, the Wedding Business Academy, hosted by Jenny Krause and Kristen Kaplan. They're sponsoring the show this month, and I could not be more grateful for their support of the show and of the listeners. The Wedding Business Academy is a 6-month group coaching program. If you have been looking for a place to find community, to find a mastermind, to find ways to achieve your goals in 2017, whatever they may be, whether they are personal or business related or financially related to your wedding business, the Wedding Business Academy could be for you. Tap your podcast player and head to the full show notes so you can head over to their website. It's at theweddingbusinessacademy.com and sign up for their email list so you can be notified when they are open for enrollment. On February 9th, I have a really fun podcast with Jenny and Kristen where they're going to go over all of the Wedding Business Academy so you can get a true idea of what it's going to be like in their 6-month group coaching program and take a peek at it and see if it's for you. On to today's episode. I'm doing the introduction a little bit differently today. I'm going to kind of see if I like this better. So after this introduction, the intro music will play and then we'll get right into the interview with Jenna. But as I mentioned, Jenna Kutcher likely needs no introduction. She is an incredible photographer. She is a very successful online business owner. She's a mentor. She's a mac and cheese lover. She's a wife. She hails from Wisconsin, and pretty much any day, according to her, you can find her in yoga pants. I learned so much during this conversation. We talk about her building her email list for the first time in 2016. We talk about how much money she had to spend on Facebook ads in order to reach $1 million in sales of her online course. It was really incredible. And I also have a little mistake at the end. Towards the end of the interview, I thought I lost her on the audio. And so I kind of yell, I'm all, Jenna. And she's like, yeah, I'm still here. So that was awkward and embarrassing, but still funny. This is just a great interview, you guys. Jenna is so giving and open. She is a complete open book when it comes to information, and I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, let's go to the show.
This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Jenna Kutcher, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kinsey.
Thank you for being on here. It is a true pleasure to chat with you, and I know that this is going to be an excellent interview, so I really appreciate your time today, and I'm excited to get to know more about you.
Of course, whatever you need.
Yay! Well, I know that you will not be a stranger to anyone listening, but I did give your professional bio there at the top of the show. However, I would love, in your own words, if you would briefly tell everyone who you are and how you serve the wedding industry.
Of course. So, hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. And this is weird to be on the other side, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yes.
But I'm coming at you from our attic in Wisconsin, and it's -8 degrees out today. And I am an entrepreneur, so I'm a wedding photographer. And 5 years ago, I left my corporate job to become a wedding photographer with nothing more than a $300 Craigslist camera. And over the last 5 years, I've been super fortunate to build a 6-figure photography business and then start to help educate other photographers all over the world. And so I absolutely love the wedding industry. I love working with other vendors, and I adore my wedding clients. They are some of the best people I've ever met. And I keep in touch with most of them. I photographed over 100 some weddings in the last 5 years, and it's just something that I think I will do for as long as I possibly can.
Okay, so quick question. You live in Wisconsin, but have you always lived there? Have you grown up there? Because you don't sound like Wisconsin, eh? Or whatever.
Oh gosh. So actually I grew up even further north in Duluth, Minnesota, which is pretty close to the Canadian border. And up until this year of my life, I'd never even been to Canada, which is hilarious. But a lot of people say they can't hear an accent on me, which is good, but I do apparently articulate some words very oddly. And so it's funny teaching courses and speaking and stuff because you become so much more aware of how you sound and what you say. And so especially over the last year, I've been able to get rid of a lot of some of my speaking quirks, but starting a podcast really brought some of this back to light. So it's definitely been an experience, but I am trying to not sound too northern for y'all.
You don't. I love it. We have great family friends who are from Malacca, Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, totally.
And I just love talking. Not only are they like the most friendly people in the world, but also I'm like, gosh, I love the way you talk.
That's amazing.
Anyway, okay, so we'll talk about Canada later, but I am interested to know you've done over 100 weddings now, and you've been in the business for 5 years, but I imagine, and we're going to get into like the education piece of your business, but I imagine that your photography business itself has really evolved over the last 5 years. And so I was wondering if you would share with us, aside from the $300 camera, what did your business really look like 5 years ago, and how has it evolved today?
Definitely. It's really hard to sum up 5 years as an entrepreneur because I feel like they went by lightning quick. But at the same time, I feel like it has been just this evolution to where I am today. So I'll back up and explain how I got started. I went to school for business and communication, and I totally wanted to be a corporate boss girl. I envisioned high heels and cute little business suits, which I don't even know why, because I can't walk in high heels for the life of me. But that's what I thought I wanted for my life. And that was what I studied and went to school for. And I landed a corporate job, got into it. And really quickly, I was feeling burned out and depleted and really anxious, and a lot of characteristics that just weren't who I am at the core of my being. And so, like I said, I got a camera on Craigslist with zero intention of actually becoming a photographer. The intent was to document Drew and our wedding planning process because I loved weddings, which should have been a signal for what was to come. Mm-hmm. And so I started taking photos mostly of just stuff we were doing. And it quickly became very obvious that I was super passionate about it. And looking back, there's definitely moments in my life that I could have seen now that I have the hindsight that I was going to be a photographer. And so luckily, I had this incredible business knowledge from college, though it wasn't entrepreneurial based. It was still, great marketing and great PR and branding and all that kind of stuff. And so I quickly decided I need to get out of this corporate job. I'm going to match my salary so that I can quit ASAP. And I was able to do that within 1 year. So I booked 25 weddings my first year, and I get asked a million questions about how I did that. And there's a lot of components to it. I knew the importance of branding. So I had a logo made, and I didn't have a website. I had a blog, and I never went into debt for my business. It was all on a shoestring budget, but I truly went out there and I hustled, and I contacted people that I saw were getting engaged, and I reached out to people, and I paid for advertising. I did all these things. And so a year later, I was able to quit my corporate job and start as a photographer. And so those first 3 years, I was on this upward trajectory. So it was more. I had 25 weddings, and then 27 weddings, and then 30 weddings. And that year of 30 weddings was just a really hard year. I was so burnt out. I was exhausted. I had zero work-life balance, and I was just struggling to keep up. And I knew something needed to shift, and I knew it needed to be really a big, dramatic shift, or else my life was not going to be the way that I wanted it to be. And we leave these corporate jobs thinking it's just going to be a cakewalk, and instead we find ourselves head down in our business constantly. And so I decided after talking with Drew that I was going to cut my wedding workload in half for the following year. And we were going to just take a giant income hit. And that was okay with us because I felt like I would finally have my life back. So these last 2 years, I've only shot 16 weddings each year. And going into next year, I haven't even announced this anywhere. So this is the inside scoop.
Oh, get out of here. Okay.
But next year, I'm only shooting 8 weddings total. So I'm cutting it in half again. And so to look at what that's been like and the reasoning why is just when I finally gave myself space and time to breathe again, I realized that I had all these different passions, which we'll talk about. But I also just felt a lot more balanced in my life and business. And I was working from a place of rest and not a place of stress. And so there's been many different ways that this has happened, and I'm sure we'll hash them out. But to look back at where I started from this place of hustle to where I am today, working from a place of rest, has just been this giant evolution process and something that I really want to teach people about.
Yeah. So, okay, you said something that I kind of highlighted here because I feel like this is not the antithesis, but it's kind of the opposite of what people tend to do. When you cut back to only 16 weddings a year, the last 2 years, you and Drew just agreed that, hey, we're going to take a big hit. So it sounds like you didn't raise your prices.
So exactly.
Okay.
It wasn't one of those things where I was like, I have to double my rates and cut back in half and still make the same amount of money. What we were finding is I was fortunate. I had built this 6-figure photography business, but I had no time or energy to even enjoy the money that we were making. And thankfully so, we are not debt people. The only debt that we have in our lives is our home, which we actually could pay off, but we're not because we have a great mortgage rate. And we were living within our means. And one of the best things that I had found, or I guess applied in my life as an entrepreneur, was that when I started making 6 figures, I was still paying myself the same salary that I was for the years before and just saving that money. And so we were able to say, I'm going to cut this in half and I only might make, $50K a year, whatever that looks like. But to me, to have that time, to have weekends, to have energy back, it was worth it. And actually the opposite ended up happening. So while we were willing to take that hit, when I finally had the time and space to breathe again, we unexpectedly found another revenue stream, actually multiple revenue streams, through my calligraphy and artwork and through education. And so I ended up making, I think it was like 3 times as much as I had made the year before. And it was crazy because I was going into that year with an intent of a deficit. And so God is good and I feel really blessed with that. But I also just think that we came from a place of honest reliance that it was okay to make less money and that money wasn't what we were after. And in turn, we were really blessed so that we could bless other people too.
That's right. And then not only did you get the space to breathe, but there is really something to be said that you get the space to think, like you get the space to actually think outside of what you're doing, shooting 30 weddings every weekend, the year is over, but now you have the space to really like expand and put all of your knowledge and all of your experience and what does that mean? And now, and really just sit there and say, how can I use this further to help others?
Right. And the thing too that I want to note is 30 weddings might not sound like a lot to some people, but when you live in the Midwest, there is a very short window of time where you can shoot weddings. And so I did 30 weddings between May and October. Wow. And so when you take 30 weddings and cram it into a 6-month period, you can do the math and understand what that time of my life looked like. And so while we love to look at other people's numbers, whether it's income or followers or the amount of work that they're doing, I always love to caution people and say, like, you don't know the back end. You don't know their cost of living or their debt or their college loans or whatever that looks like. And so I always want to preface anything because I'm very open about finances and I think that people crave that. And it doesn't make me feel awkward. I hope it doesn't make other people feel awkward. But I also want to preface that, like, you need to, whenever you hear people talk about that, you need to understand that there's so much more to the context than what you're just hearing.
You're so right. Thank you for sharing that. That's a really important thing to remember.
Totally.
So you mentioned this already, but let's dig a little bit deeper then. The last 2 years then you've really, I'm assuming that you've always kind of had an educator's heart because I don't think that just develops. I think that it sounds like you've always been interested in sharing. You're a very open person, which I think goes hand in hand with being an educator. And so, 2 years ago when you cut back your weddings by half and you started saying, okay, I have these other skills in art and calligraphy and teaching. When did you, or I guess, how did you know that you wanted to take your skills and put that into educating other professionals?
I think that a lot of people saw me come onto this scene and maybe I mean, I don't want to say this in a weird way, but maybe make big waves pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I was getting on people's radars pretty fast because I was able to, get this full-time business pretty quickly and get a following quickly. And I think that they could see that I was doing something differently. And so I was getting tons of requests to do one-on-one mentoring. And I did some of that, but in my business mind, I knew like this isn't going to be the right path, because then I'm just going to be filling my weeks with this and weekends with weddings, and it's just going to spiral out of control. And so 2 years ago, almost to the day, I hired a mentor and I took a course, and it was all about how to kind of create courses and what that looks like. And it really changed everything for me because there was so much fear about it. And I think that a lot of times we want to ask ourselves like, well, who am I to teach this? Like, I'm 28 years old. I don't have a degree in photography, whatever. We have all these excuses about ourselves. And I think when I finally learned to say, who am I not to do this? Like, I have my experience and it's obviously worked for me, and I know it can work for other people. That's when I really took a deep dive into teaching. And over the last 2 years, that has evolved and scaled in incredible ways. So I launched my first course, and we had 25 women take it, and it was a higher priced course. And I did a lot of one-on-one calls with them and a lot of business coaching. And again, it really was a time suck, and it wasn't a time suck in a bad way. I enjoyed every second of it, but I knew like I can't scale this if I'm spending 8 hours a day on the phone with these women. How can I put what I'm saying over and over and over again into something that can be replicable? That was a weird word.
Nope, it's a word. Replicable located.
It was not flowing. So it's definitely evolved, and I have definitely developed a heart and a knowledge of how to educate people well. And I remember when I told my mom, who is an educator, that I was going to start teaching courses, she's like, you definitely didn't go to school for this. Do you know how to write curriculum? Like, what does this look like? And I'm like, no, but I'll figure it out. And sure enough, I did. And so, it's been this insane evolution, and it fires me up to know that I can change lives. And I also just see such a need as creatives that we, as creative people, I feel like I have a split personality because I am half CEO, businesswoman, and half artist. And a lot of times people are all artists and they really struggle with structure and pricing and how to be profitable and how to create sustainable workflows and, all those things. And so to be able to help artists reach that point is just, it's so life-giving for me.
Yes. And for them as well, because it's going to change the facets of their business. It'll change the face of their business.
Yes.
So, okay, it sounds like your first course was more of a group coaching program. Would you say that that's accurate? Okay.
Yes.
When did you kind of transition to, like your Instagram course? When did you transition to that?
So that was just a year ago.
Okay.
And after I worked with this one mentor, I've just really found that taking on mentors that are walking the walk and that are where you want to be going is just huge. And it's an investment. I kid you not, I've written some checks out where I'm like, holy Lord, like, please make this be worth it. But I know that whenever I put money on the line that's going to help further my business, that I will make it worth it. Like, I will make sure that I'm making wise investments. And so a year ago, I took on another mentor, and she definitely helped in helping me learn how to teach webinars and do that kind of stuff. And so in the last year, we did over $1 million in course sales, which is insane. And I've been able to teach thousands of entrepreneurs. And it's just amazing because every day I get to hop in and answer questions and follow the hashtags and see how people are doing and reach out to my students. And it's been, this last year was just the craziest year and the best year of my life for a lot of reasons. And that was one of them.
That is incredible. Okay, I have two questions, so I don't want to forget. Yep. The first is, I would love your opinion on, you keep saying that you invested in a mentor, and so it sounds singular. And so can I get your opinion on, investing in a mentor that you can work one-on-one with, or like a group coaching program that's also sort of like mastermind mentorship? What are your thoughts on both of those?
So I have done both. Mm-hmm. And what I tell people to do, and this is what I believe, is you should actually take courses first, mm-hmm. And make sure that you can learn from the instructor and that you align with the way that they're running their business, the way that they're teaching, the way that they're explaining things. Because what scares me is that there are all of these business, quote, coaches out there, but they might not be familiar with your industry. They might not have the same heart or the same vision as you. And so like my first, quote, mentor, it was a course that I took, but he had a one-on-one component with that. And so that was where the coaching stuff came into play. And then the second one, I just started reaching out to, actually it was podcasters that I listened to that I liked, seeing if any of them did one-on-one coaching, and a lot of them didn't, but they connected me with someone who did. And, it was a great experience, but I don't think I would do that again, mm-hmm. because while the person that I had hired was really good at webinars and that kind of stuff, the way that she was running her business was just not aligned with the way that my heart was going. And so we worked together on a few projects, and then I kind of just went another way, and that was okay. And it definitely taught me more about how I want to run my business. This year, I am doing a mastermind group. So there are 20 entrepreneurs, and it's led by Lewis Howes, who is an incredible podcaster. Mm-hmm. And I don't even want to tell you how much money it's costing, but I know that it's going to be worth every penny. And it's more of a formal gathering. Like we're meeting in LA in a couple of weeks, so I have to travel to these things. But Lewis is an author, and he is a podcaster, and he does courses, and he's passionate, and he serves people, and he gives back. And so, choosing people that are really in line with what you want to be doing is super great. And then I also think hiring somebody that is very honest, right. In an open book, because we're not going to learn from each other if we're withholding stuff,
That's so true. And for those listening, if you don't know Lewis Howes, his podcast is called The School of Greatness. His book is also the same title. Awesome show. He's also like a professional, is it handball, I think, or like an Olympic athlete? It's
He
does like the weirdest stuff he does. Yeah. You wouldn't think it, but you're like, oh, you're a award-winning podcaster and an Olympic athlete. Okay, great.
Yep. Awesome.
It's really interesting and fascinating, but also just a super, super smart guy. Yes. Okay. So, and then I have a ton of more questions after that. Okay. Yeah. I do have a question, and feel free, we can cut this out, or feel free not to answer, but okay. I am interested to know, you just told us that you did over $1 million in course sales in 2016. Yeah. And so I wonder if you would be willing to share, you don't have to share exact numbers, but if you'd be willing to share, like what portion of that or percentage did you have to spend on paid ads and things of that nature? Mm-hmm.
So do you want to know how much I spent on Facebook ads last year?
Sure.
This is going to floor people.
I think it will.
I'm actually going to record a podcast episode on my podcast about this. So like I said, I'm an open book. We spent $75,000 on Facebook ads last year.
Okay.
Is that not insane?
That's a lot. That's insane. But like comparative to $1 million, it's, it's
not. And
standard.
That's what I think one of the biggest things that I've learned about myself this past year is that I am not afraid to invest when I know that it will pay itself off. And of course it's terrifying, right? Like that's a salary, that's a hefty salary right there. But at the same point, I was able to grow my list by tens of thousands. I was able to reach way more people. I was able to be introduced to people who might not have been customers last year, but who might be in the future. And I was able to serve so many more entrepreneurs. So we actually hire a launch team when I do launches. And other than that, I have one assistant who just came on with me over the last 6 months. So up until April of this year, I was flying solo, like entirely solo in my life and in my business. Drew is my husband. He's not my, workmate or, a co-owner of the business. It has always been mine. And so I have spent way more money this year than I've ever spent in any other year, but we've also made more money this year than any other year. So, contracting out things like graphic design, Facebook ads, tech people, support help for all these launches and stuff, it's worth every penny. And my team is insanely incredible people. And I get to support a ton of women entrepreneurs, which I adore.
Right. Because the contractors are running their own businesses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I only work with them for, a couple weeks leading up to the launch and then through the launch week. And then we kind of go our separate ways until we do another launch together. So it's pretty crazy.
That's so cool. How far in advance do you need to contact them to say, hey girls, like I have another launch coming up. Let's all get realigned.
So this is crazy. As well. I mean, I feel like I'm saying the word crazy, but I am weird. I've never realized how weird I am. And I've definitely developed a lot as a human and an entrepreneur over the last year. Today, what I'm doing is I am scheduling every single Facebook post for 2 months from now. That's how far I am working ahead. Which is crazy because I'm working from a place of rest. And so I have my whole year planned out, I guess I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I have all of our big launches mapped out, and I'm very conscious of giving my audience a break and going back to serving before we ever try to sell anything to them. And I respect my audience so deeply that we are just very, we just want to make sure that we're serving. That's where the heart comes from. And it's one of those things that I suck at sales. I hate selling. I think it's super uncomfortable, but the proof is in the pudding that you can serve people and you can change lives through selling. And so that's been a really big shift for me. But yeah, I now work way in advance. And part of that is because we are taking one entire month off this year, which is something I've never done in the last 5 years.
Tell us about it. I confession, I do know this because I listened to your show yesterday, but tell everybody.
Yeah. So, Drew and I are going to Hawaii for an entire month, and I am just, it's insane. Here's what I want people to know about this, because I think, there's a problem with our society where we say something like that and people start to fill in the story for us. And so I want to tell the story because I don't want people to assume that this $1 million that I made last year is affording us this. Actually, it's not. We saved all of that money that we have, and it was not $1 million at the end of the year. And so we've invested, we've saved. And so we went to Hawaii last year for 10 days and just fell in love. And Drew and I travel every single February without question. We've never missed a year since we've been together. And we loved Hawaii. There's just something special about it. And in Hawaii was where we actually found out we were pregnant. And then we went on to miscarry. And so that was a really hard part of last year. And it taught me so much about grace and letting go of control and accepting that sometimes life isn't going to go how we thought. And this trip is like a redemptive trip, but it is also kind of like a spiritual thing of we only have this one life and we're not waiting for someday anymore. And so I started talking about it very casually as an idea. And Drew kept saying let's just go live in Hawaii. And I'm like, we have our families, we have our house, we have our dogs. That's not going to happen. And it ended up being so many things to us. So it was one of the deadlines that helped Drew leave his 9-to-5 job and start his business. It is a time that we are actually scheduling rest into our lives. And I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm not saying I'm not going to work for an entire month. I love to work. And so I'm sure I'm going to be working, but I'm going to be working in different ways. And so everything is scheduled from the blog to Facebook, to emails. We are really just taking every step to give us that time of rest. And sabbatical, the word comes from the word Sabbath, which is coming from a place of rest. And so I'm so excited about it. We have no plans. We're flying parents out to visit. It was one of their bucket list items that I've heard them talk about their entire lives. And it was one of the ways that we could bless them is to pay for their airfare to come out, and just things like that. And so, yeah, I'm so excited about it. And it's just, I hope that it inspires people in so many ways for, stop waiting for someday. It's actually cheaper right at this point of time to be there for 30 days than it was for 10 days, because when we went for 10 days, we stayed at a super expensive hotel and ate out all the time. And we got this bare bones studio apartment on the beach, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm excited.
You should be. That sounds so fun. I honestly, I can wait because I want you to just soak in 30 days, but I cannot wait to hear like what that inspires you to do. And I really do wonder, like, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I know you have your year planned out, but I wonder like what that month of rest, if that will kind of inspire something new or like a new trajectory or something.
Yeah. And we'll be working maybe like one day a week, I think one or two. And I'm kind of just open to like letting it just happen how it is. I don't want to have any sort of schedule. I don't want to have any urgency or deadlines. And so I know that will work, but I definitely think it's going to be in different ways. And my assistant is like ready to man the inbox, and we're putting up an autoresponder, and I'm just really excited. I'm sure we'll be Instagramming and sharing, and we really just want to share our story and how we made it happen and what that looks like, because I really think that other people could benefit from such a time of rest, even if it's not a month, if it's a week or 10 days or even just a weekend of quiet. I think that we need more of that in our lives.
We do. We need to slow down and really kind of accept that there are seasons in our life that there has to be slow. Like you do not have to be doing something all the time.
Yes. Amen.
So I wonder, okay, we've kind of hinted at this, and I'm sure everybody knows listening, but I would love to talk about the Gold Digger podcast, which is your podcast. It's absolutely wonderful. It hit the top of the iTunes charts in the first couple of days. So can you tell me you already had a successful photography business, you had a successful education business, and now, you're a podcaster, a very successful podcaster. So tell me your vision for that show.
Oh gosh. I wish I had some like beautiful, eloquent answer. But here's the truth. My brother a year ago told me you should start a podcast. And I was like, heck no, I have nothing to say. I would be so awkward. Like I was so turned off by that idea that I didn't even entertain it. And fast forward to actually, it was in October. I was in the shower where all good ideas happen. Right. And I was like listening to a podcast because I am an efficiency queen. And so if I'm showering, I might as well be learning something. And I was like, why don't I do this? Like, what the heck? Like, this is so smart because we get to get glimpses into people's lives, but this would just be another way to teach and to serve and for free. And like, how incredible is that? And so I voice texted. I don't text message. I hate texting. So I voice text people. So if you're on the inside of the Jenna Kutcher life, you get voice texts from me because they're way more efficient. Like I said, I'm an efficiency person. So I voice texted my assistant and I'm like, you're going to hate me, but we're going to do a podcast. I feel like, and I told her, I was like, I feel like we're going to be bored next year with only 8 weddings and all of our courses are relaunching. So we don't have all of that heavy lifting. And she was laughing. She's like, we will never be bored. But she's like, I think it's a great idea. And so I put it together in 6 weeks, I believe. I think the time was. And I have just learned over this last year, like, stop waiting for perfect. It doesn't exist. I was dragging my feet. I was working on everything but recording. I was so afraid to record. I didn't know how it was going to work or sound or anything. And so, yeah, it's been amazing. The whole idea of it is just, I want it to feel like a workshop for people that might not want to go to workshops or be able to afford them, or for introverts like me. And I just have so many incredible connections that have been built over the last 5 years with amazing women. And I want to give them a platform to teach on and to see that they have something valuable to offer the world.
Oh, and you had already some incredible guests. So I wonder, tell me about your recording schedule. Are you like 2 months ahead on that as well? before you leave? Okay.
Yep. So we're pretty much recorded up through the entire month that will be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And also the week after. I have a few last minute, or not last minute, but a few last episodes to record. But otherwise we're pretty much working 2 months ahead. And it was a really hard move because I felt this pull to go to 2 days a week, which is double the work. Like, that's crazy. I don't know why I listened to that call, to be honest, because it would have been a lot easier to just stick to 1 day a week. But it's pushing me to do more solo shows, which I'm really enjoying, and just kind of get more creative with it. And so I am working ahead. I would love to get to a place where I can batch interview. So sit down on a Tuesday and do interview after interview after interview. While that sounds exhausting, I think, setting up and getting the dogs quiet and getting into that frame of mind, it just takes a lot of time. And so I would love to get to that. And I do have editors, which was something that I just really wanted. I didn't want to take on that extra workload. So I definitely went into it working smarter, not harder, and making that happen, which was awesome.
That is awesome. I'm kind of testing that out this year. So when I started the podcast last year, I was like, I just opened up my schedule and I knew I needed to do that. So I was very aware that I was doing that, but it was like all day, every day, 5 days a week is open for interviews basically.
Yes.
And so this year I cut it down to just Mondays and Wednesdays are open on the calendar, like all day. And so I'm going to see how it works. And you're so right. That's such a good idea.
One of the hardest things about it that I found, though, is it's like when you are the host and you are interviewing somebody, you have to like respect their schedule too. And so it feels hard to be like, I can only do it Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it is, I think it's just one of those things where we have to learn how to set boundaries and obviously be flexible where you can, but also be cognizant of our workflow also.
Oh yeah, such a good point. Because you want them to feel their schedule to feel respected and to feel, you want them to feel loved on, not like come here at 11 or else.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, it was a tough decision, but I think too that especially as you and I go into the new year, there will be people who they didn't know what your old recording schedule was, so your new one is just your new one, and that's just the way it is.
Exactly.
Smart. You get it, girl.
I'm on it. I try.
I'm on it. That's a bumper sticker. Okay. Tell me about your launch strategy for your podcast. You mentioned earlier that you have a launch strategy, like a launch team for your courses and things of that nature. And as I mentioned, your podcast did really hit the scenes hard and you were to the top of the iTunes charts, which is so awesome and a huge, huge accomplishment. Did you have a team a little bit behind your launch, or were you just like, publish?
Not even a little bit. There was, honestly, somebody else was asking me about this and they were like, I need to learn your podcast launch strategy. And I'm like, it's like, I don't even know what it was. So sure. I definitely have a marketer's brain. And so I feel like my brain was at least smart about it, but there was absolutely no team involved, nothing. Like, we were figuring things out. I had no idea how to work any of this equipment. Technology is not my best thing. So I did have my incredible website designer, Jen Olmstead, design a page for it. We launched with 4 episodes up so that people could go through that content instead of just going through one episode and then waiting. Mm-hmm. We hinted at it a lot. And then I sent out an email to my email list and posted about it on Instagram and started an insiders group on Facebook. And that was pretty much it. There was no begging people to share it or anything like that. It was very organic, but I think I never realized how much of a need there was for it until I launched it and people were really excited about it. So I think that, I love podcasts, and there are definitely some I love more than others. And I feel like there are always these needs that can be filled, and sometimes we're the people to fill them and sometimes we're not. So I wanted it to be something unique and different, but, while still being relatable, I guess.
Yeah, well, you've certainly accomplished that, and I think that the early success of the show, it's. I think it's important what you just touch on is that you didn't have some master plan behind launching it, but I
No.
think it's a huge testament to how you've served your followers and your audience the last 5 years because
Mhm.
they were very ready to like lift you up in this new endeavor, and made that success what it is. So that's a huge testament to building a real relationship with your people.
I honestly have the best people behind me, and it's insane because I have done some really weird things over the last few years, and I feel like never once have I mean, I get there's always haters, I guess, but never once has anyone in my tribe been like, "This sucks," or "Move on," or "I can't believe you're doing this." And so it's always been just amazing. I feel like people are really invested in me and not
Yes.
just me as a photographer, or me as an educator, but who I am and what I'm going after. And it's even been so obvious with Drew launching his business and the support that we've seen with that. Like people, when they can know you and actually know you and have that connection towards you, you better bet that they're going to support when you are excited about something. And so I agree. I feel like I have served and served and served, and this is just another way to serve. And that support is very obvious and such a blessing.
Well, and you mentioned Drew's new business, and that is the Kutcher
Yeah.
method, right? Will you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
Yes. Yeah. So when we were in Hawaii last year and we found out we were pregnant, it was like, oh my Lord. Drew was so excited. He downloaded daddy books like the day that we found out. And I like couldn't sleep because I was like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? And I was super excited, but just super shocked. And when we found that out, I feel like that was when our brain started going like, what is our lives going to look like? Like, how am I going to support this empire that I've built? Drew was selling wine, so in grocery stores from 9 to 5 and working weekends and holidays. And so it was very much a retail type position that was commission based. And so I looked at him and I'm like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, what do you want to do? Because he kept saying, I want to move to Hawaii. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So what do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I just want to inspire people to be happier and healthier. And this guy, like, if you guys could see him, he walks the walk and he talks the talk more than anyone I've ever met in my life. And so that just started as an idea, and we didn't even start moving with it until summer. And I was like, well, why don't we just start going for it? And so I created him an Instagram account as a bet that I could get him 1,000 followers within a day or something. I think we had a bet going on that people wanted to learn more about him, and I won, obviously. And then we like took that bet of his new Instagram account and really started sharing stuff in it and started freely giving. And so we grew his email list by thousands just by serving people. And then we went and launched. So we launched a week ago. And he is doing health coaching, so one-on-one health coaching, nutrition, and workout plans for entrepreneurs who work at home and need help living a healthier life. Because he's seen me struggle. I mean, it's genuinely a struggle. Working from home, I think a lot of people think it's super glamorous, and I think it's really hard. So that's what he's doing.
Oh, so awesome. And I think that so what does your work life look like together then? Is he still...
Well,
Yeah,
we
tell
haven't
me.
figured that out yet because his last day is tomorrow.
Well, there you go.
And so it'll be really interesting. I am nervous. I'm not going to lie.
Sure.
I'm really nervous. I've worked from home for 5 years and I really value alone time. And so we are actually planning on seeing a marriage counselor as a precautionary tale. Like, we love our marriage and we love each other. And we've done a really good job of keeping work and our marriage separate. And it's been really hard because I have helped him so much with his business, and it feels like his business is my business too. And I need to learn where my position is. And I think that, you know, I've learned so much over these last 5 years, and I just want to make sure that he's successful, but I also need to let him do it, you know?
Yes.
And so it's been, I am like, in being entirely candid, it's been really hard because while he was working his 9 to 5, I was out there writing email copy and web copy and, curating photos for his website and really building this for him because I knew it was important. And he didn't have time, but then where do I let go and where do I just serve him as his wife and where can I help serve him as a business mentor? So no sugarcoating it allowed. It has been interesting and I think it will be an interesting year of transition.
I totally agree. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's, I love your like preemptive strike of having marriage counseling. And, it's kind of like that shot across the bow, like we're going to do this because we know that this is a brand new, it's just like anything. You don't know how to do that. You don't know how to work together, both working at home. You don't know what you don't know. So thank you for sharing that.
I think our families got nervous because we were like, we're going to see a marriage counselor. And they were like, oh no. And I was like, no, like we are so good that we want to stay this way. And especially too, if we have children, Drew's deepest desire is to be a stay-at-home dad, which I absolutely love about him. And so, that would be just another thing. And so I think if we can really be on top of things and have that time where we can learn how to communicate better and just feel each other's deepest desires a little bit better, I think, why would you not do that? You
bet. Absolutely. Well, okay. I have already taken more time than I said I would, and I apologize about that. So I will
keep going. Like we can talk all day. It's not even mac and cheese time yet.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that mac and cheese could wait.
Right?
Let me ask you. I will try to wrap up here. Otherwise, I will talk your ear off. This has been so much fun. We've really gotten into a few things that you're doing in 2017. Like you're going to Hawaii. Drew launched the Kutcher method, so I feel like that will be a big part of it. Is there anything else you're excited about that you want to share with us?
Yeah, like I said, we're working far ahead. Something that recently came on my radar that I haven't quite figured out what it's going to look like is potentially writing a book. Which is crazy. I don't even know. I really don't even know what will become of it, but it excites me because it's something that I've always had on my heart, but I just never, again, I felt like, who am I to do this? And so that is something that's on my radar and we'll kind of see how that goes. I kind of envision writing on the beaches of Hawaii,
there you go.
But who knows? And what I'm most excited about for this coming year is really continuing to work smarter and not harder and learning how to teach other people to do that because I just think that life is so short. And while we're so busy building up these businesses, a lot of times we're missing out on building our lives. And so that is what my heart is saying. And have you read the book Present Over Perfect yet?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm in it right now and I love it. My assistant gave it to me for Christmas and it's just really reminding me of having that margin in our lives and ignoring society's call to the hustle. And so it'll be interesting, but I pray that my year looks a little bit more like that with margin and rest and excitement. So yeah.
Yes. And listeners, if you haven't read that book yet, it's Present Over Perfect. And I always say her last name wrong, but it's Shauna Niequist.
I think so. Yeah. Niequist. Okay. Yeah. That's how I would say.
Yeah. That's how I say it. So I'll put it in the show notes. Jenna, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think I lost you a little bit there.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Sorry, I didn't mean to yell at you. Jenna.
I got you. I'm here.
Well, as we wrap up, since we kind of talked about 2017, I would love for you to just tell us 2 things that you are totally loving right now. They do not have to be business related.
Well, I told you before we started recording that somebody sent me mac and cheese in the mail, and I am really a craft shapes girl, but they sent me Annie's white cheddar mac and cheese, and it was amazing. So that would be number 1. And number 2, I am just really excited about the book, Present Over Perfect, that we just brought up. So I would love for entrepreneurs to really dive into that. And I love to have my nose in multiple books at the same time. And so I've just been reading that one before bed at night, which has been just really a great time of unwinding and reminding myself of what matters most.
That is a perfect way to end this show. Jenna Kutcher, thank you so much for being here. It has truly been an honor to talk to you, and I really, really appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that I can connect with your listeners too.
Me too. Tell us where they can do that.
Oh, of course. So Instagram is at Jenna Kutcher, spelled like Ashton Kutcher, not my cousin. And website is the same, jennakutcher.com. And the Goal Digger podcast is GOAL digger.com. Goaldiggerpodcast.com. Go to the podcast one. I don't know what the other one will bring you to.
It'll be a surprise. Either way, all of these links will be in the show notes. So if you want easy access to Jenna, just go ahead and tap your podcast player and click on her links and it'll send you right to her. Jenna, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. Wasn't that an incredible episode? Jenna has such a huge heart. You can tell she is so passionate about this industry, and I'm just so thrilled about what's coming for her and for all of us in 2017 and beyond. So Jenna, thank you so much for being on the show. It was seriously just an honor to have you, and I appreciate your time so much. Before we head out, I want to give a huge shout out and big thank you to this month's sponsor, the Wedding Business Academy, which is a 6-month group coaching program hosted by Ginny Krause and Kristen Kaplan. Join us on February 9th, which is a Thursday, where Ginny and Kristen completely let us in behind the scenes of the Wedding Business Academy so you can decide if it's something for you. If you have really been looking for a mastermind, if you've been looking for a community of women, if you've been looking for additional education that is really going to take your business to the next level, I highly encourage you to head to theweddingbusinessacademy.com, sign up for their email list so you can be notified when they are open for enrollment. Thank you again for listening, and we'll catch you on Thursday.